Chapter 10. I sit down and look up towards a little window, and I wait. Please kneel, child of God. I clumsily fall from my seat onto my knees. Have you come to ask God to help you know your sins? God? When was the last time you confessed, and what sins do you accuse yourself of? I confess daily. The language in my mind, the language I speak to others, is of a confessional nature. I accuse myself of taking someone's place when I was born. I accuse myself of stopping a normal, healthy person from living, making money, and having children. I accuse myself of being a renegade, of not respecting the values and laws of liberalism, capitalism, my society, my fellow citizens. But most of all, I accuse myself of being unequaled by any man. I accuse myself of having taste. I accuse myself of being one of Christ's chosen ones. Complete silence filled the confession box. The young man wondered if anyone, any priest, were really there. Either way, he felt as if he had got out what he wanted to say. He had confessed. Are you familiar with the Epistle to the Romans? A voice whispered eventually, tunneling through the silence. It is the 6th book in the New Testament by Paul. In it, Paul says, "Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. In professing oneself wise, one becomes a fool." I know that I am a fool. But to be a fool, one must realize that they have been conned, been forsaken. This is more insight than the modern man has. He has been fooled time and time again, but he doesn't see himself as a fool. How absolutely foolish that is. He is not even embarrassed by his state. Jesus was fooled. He died shouting, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" The box was filled up with silence again, like water filling up an ice cube tray. The priest spoke. "Quo vadis?" The young man replied, "Quo vadis?" "Where are you going?" the priest said. "I am not sure, but I feel as if I know, or have once known. I am returning somewhere, or am being told to go somewhere." Quo vadis is what Jesus said to Peter when he began to flee Rome from likely crucifixion. You see, Jesus knew he was going to be crucified. He says, "I am going to Rome to be crucified again." And this gives Peter courage to return to Rome with him as martyrs. Jesus was not a fool. It was us who were the fools. It was us who didn't believe. Look here, Christ was forsaken and I was forsaken. Aren't we all? We are all made up of abandonment. The burning stars have turned their back on us and have died out. We hover now in an empty abyss. The subconscious forsakes consciousness and vice versa. The truth that should correspond to my soul has forsaken me, and now I am left barren, picking up whatever fragments I can utilize to keep me alive. There is nothing in this world of me, of my imagination. All my expressions seem to stick to me, lay morbidly behind my glazed eyes, internally accumulating like mold. More silence filled the confession box, but this time it felt mixed with disagreement and opinion. You remind me of a man, a young servant who stubbornly chose Jesus over God. He was a Roman, and at first he despised Jesus. We all hate Jesus first. It is the route to love. It is love's first guise. He reminds me of you, the priest continued. He was antithetical to the Christian attitude. He thought that pity was a weakness in people, and that it was in fact condescending and rude. He had little time for social activities, much more time for personal development. He enjoyed power even though he was mainly victim to it. His name is derived from Greek, and so he is that lovely mixture of Greco-Roman nobility which is peculiarly mysterious to Christians. I can see that you have this mystery inside you too. He was a servant, first to the Roman attitude, second to the Christian. Do you want to know the story? Yes, I think I do. Malchus was the servant to the Jewish high priest Caiaphas, who participated in the arrest of Jesus. Malchus was ordered to apprehend Jesus and bring him to Rome to be judged by Pontius Pilate, with the help of a band of soldiers and, of course, Judas. At the moment when the soldiers were about to seize Jesus, St. Peter, out of anger, drew a sword out of Malchus's scabbard and cut off the right ear of Malchus. Christ at once healed Malchus's wound out of benevolence and accepted his arrest, where he was taken to Rome, whipped, given a crown of thorns, and later crucified. Malchus could hear the rustling of paper in the priest's compartment through the tiny holes of the grid separating his tear-drenched face from that of his father. John, chapter 18, verses 10 and 11. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then Jesus said unto Peter, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? It has been said that this was the last miracle of bodily cure that Christ made before his crucifixion. The last miracle was Malchus. Malchus converted to Christianity shortly after this, perhaps the first ever Roman to do so. This last miracle is you, my boy. Malchus replies, sobbing, Gauguin takes my left ear, and Peter takes my right, and both cheeks slapped on the left and then the right. The priest interjects in a comforting voice, There is madness in everything, Malchus. There is madness in all bloodlines. There is madness in Caligula's insanity on the beach. There is madness in Nero capturing Christians dipped in oil, setting them on fire in his garden at night as a source of light. There is madness in our favorite apostles. Peter was indeed preoccupied with a form of madness. There would have been a madness in the first Christians seen by the Romans. They worship a man as God. They practice monotheism. They are accused of incest and cannibalism. Madness is the only true way to be. You just have to choose the side that you want to win. Malchus removes the hands that cradle his creased and wet face. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Silence began to fill up the room again. Silence breathed again. A different silence, a resolute silence. All the different silences between the most tragic acts in the history of the world. The silence before Robespierre was guillotined, with his face upward toward the blade. The silence between the flames of Giordano Bruno before he was burnt at the stake. Every silence ever imparted, every silence withdrawing itself, every silence offering up action, all romantic silences, all silences in nature, all religious silences, awkward silences, guilty silences, imposed silences, silences filling up new houses on the market, old attics, the silence of a letter in an unopened envelope.